Welcome back. You've joined us on Court Corner. Now, Competition Commission of India had recently rolled out the draft regulations on its amendments, which throw light on two important aspects: the methodology to calculate the deal value for the transactions and also the guidance on determining what is an SBO or the substantial business operations in India. Now, it's important as these details will form the final regulations, which will define the future deal dynamics when it concerns taking the CCI approval for the transactions which have a deal value of 2,000 crores and above, and also where the target entity has a substantial business operation in India. Now, Kumar Poornachandran of AZB and Partners is here to explain these technicalities to us. Ram, always a pleasure to welcome you on CNBC-TV18. My first question, what are the factors which come into play in calculating the deal value threshold?
Thanks, Nisha. Likewise. So the draft regulations, as you've rightly articulated, sets out two important factors. The first one, how deal value is to be calculated. And the second one is as to what constitutes significant business operation. As far as the deal value is concerned, the draft regulation states that all valuable consideration, whether direct or deferred, cash or an other kind, and deferred or immediate, will have to be factored in while calculating deal value. It also provides for an indicative, non-exhaustive set of factors that the parties will have to assess while computing deal value. There are 5 factors that have been set out. The first one being the value attributed to non-compete obligation. Any interconnected transactions involving the acquirer group and the target in the preceding 2 financial years will have to be factored in. And any value or consideration paid for ancillary or incidental agreement that is entered into within 2 years from the date of signing of the transaction, or closing of the transaction, closing of the transaction. And any option or securities that the acquirer has will have to be treated as fully exercised for the purposes of computing deal value threshold. And the last one is any future uncertain occurrence, future event that is estimated by the acquirer will have to be valued, and that value has to be factored in for the purposes of computing deal value.
Right. So Ram, you enumerated, but these are not as simple. There will be a lot of ambiguities in that, and especially my question on the ambiguity around the definition of incidental arrangements and also uncertain future events. How do you define that, and do you foresee ambiguity on these?
Yeah, on the point of ambiguity, Nisha, there is a catch-all assumption that the regulation today provides for, that in the event deploying these factors, if the parties are unable to, with certainty, ascertain the deal value, it is assumed that the deal value is triggered. So that's an overarching assumption that has been put in place. Though it's still in draft format, we'll have to see how the CCI is going to take comments from industry on that. Specifically on incidental agreements, yes, as part of transactions, you have a flurry of arrangements that kind of take place between the acquirer and the buyer. The definition of deal value is broad enough to capture any direct, indirect, or indirect, immediate or deferred payment that is envisioned as part of the transaction. So the very inclusion of the last factor that provides for any uncertain event as estimated creates significant confusion. That is something that we hope that the CCI will look into and remove in its final version of the regulations.
Right. So that is one of the aspects on which a change or a clarity is required. But what about SBOs and the definition of that? Is that clear, or will that also raise some questions?
So SBO, as it stands today, is like any enterprise in the previous financial year has 10% of its global users, subscriber, customers or visitors, or 10% of its turnover, or 10% of its gross merchandise value. That's what SBO is as per the draft regulations. So as far as SBO is concerned, there are a handful of issues that the industry will flag to the authority. How do you compute? How do you determine user? There are, in other jurisdictions, there are specific metrics that are deployed. active users. If it is going to be active users, are they monthly active users? Are we supposed to use weekly active users? That's a big question mark that the CCI will have to address
Yes.
in the final regulations.
All right, so there will be ambiguity, and there are also suggestions given by the industry while it's a public document for discussion right now. And hopefully some of the clarifications will come in the final regulations that come in. Thanks so much, Ram, for joining us. With that, completely out of time on this show. Thanks so much for tuning in.